this is the pattern that I burned on this bowl. For the most part, it's what I would call the main pattern. Something that needs to be said right away. I'm not someone that anybody would ever call an artist, and I cannot sit down and just put a pen or a pencil to paper and draw what I can kind of see in my mind. That's just not a talent that I have. But I discovered an art form called Zentangle several months ago, and I've watched several Zentangle videos, and I've burned some Zentangle patterns on some of my work. Zentangle is not actually drawing a picture, it's drawing a pattern. At least that's my interpretation of it. If you're interested in this at all, I highly recommend that you do a search for Zentangle and watch some videos. It's really a fascinating way to draw. So anyway, this is what I wanted to burn on my bowl, and I took this from a picture I found online. I'm not going to show the picture because I'm unclear on just what the copyright laws would say about that. But it's very similar to this, and if you do an image search for basket weave, I'm sure you'll find it. For me to sit down and start here and draw and draw and draw and draw, I can't do it. But if I look at this and apply what I think are some Zentangle principles, I can see that it is very repetitive and it repeats over and over. First thing I see, there are a series of vertical lines, and these vertical lines kind of have a triangle around the bottom. So that's what we're going to draw first, and to give you an idea how this pattern would go together. I'm using graph paper. A real Zentangle artist usually draws on plain paper. I need a little more help than that. So first thing we're going to do is draw some vertical lines. On my graph paper, I'm making them 3 squares long. I'm going to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and on the 4th line I'm going to draw another series of vertical lines. Skip 3, and you can see, even with the graph to guide me, I'm not real steady with my drawing. That's okay. I'm going to repeat this a couple times. Okay, I hope you can see that. When I first started drawing this pattern, these lines represent the vertical weave in my basket weave. And when I first started doing it, this pattern, I drew a triangle, something like this, on the bottom of each one of those. After drawing it for a few times, I discovered that it's actually easier for me if I go ahead and do the horizontal weave now. So starting about 1/3 of the way up, I'm just going to draw a lazy S and then draw a lazy S back to the other side. And that's one reason I like using graph paper. It's very easy to space things evenly. For someone that's not really artistically inclined, it makes it much easier to draw. And now I can bring the triangle up and fill that in, just like that. Same thing down here. And that just repeats over and over and over. I could never draw this just to sit down and draw it. I can draw this. Kind of. And by drawing it over and over and over, you create the basket weave look. After you're all done drawing, a little bit of shading will make one look like it lays on top of the other. And that's how you draw that pattern. Or how I draw it, I guess. So far as I know, this is not a pattern that's been done before. I think it meets most of the requirements to be a Zentangle pattern. I'm going to call it Steve Weave. There are any number of Zentangle artists that I'm sure could actually draw this better than I do. That's okay, it works for my purposes. Over and over again. I went too many lines that time. That one's too far down. do this one. This is wrong. Should be up here. It's going to mess up the whole pattern. That's okay, you get the idea, I hope. When you get done, you should have something that looks kind of like that. And that is the pattern Steve weave. To transfer this pattern to a bowl, I use the index feature on my lathe. I have a 24 position index, and that's just about right for doing this particular pattern. This is just a little jig knocked up out of scrap. Sometimes I clamp this, sometimes I don't. One thing I will say, everything that we do here, or everything that I do right now, is going to get erased eventually. So it's worth the investment to buy a soft graphite pencil. Get these at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, Blick Art Supplies online. They erase much easier than a number 2 pencil, and you do not want to use a mechanical pencil. Even a number 2 pencil will actually score the wood if you're not careful. So you want to make the line just as lightly as possible. I am on center line with this pencil lead. I'm just going to draw . That's a vertical, that's going to be where my vertical weave goes. Index. I'm drawing a little darker than I would normally, so it'll show up on camera. And you've probably noticed that I'm not going all the way around. I don't know why, but this is more accurate just to do it on one side. This is a flexible ruler. Not really necessary, but it makes it much easier for doing layout like this. Just lay it on the bowl, it'll follow the curve. We'll mark about every 3/4 of an inch. Right there. Hard to see. This is not critical. A basket weave, if you look at a basket weave bowl, they're not perfect. And this doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry about balancing the pattern, because I'm going to make up the difference on the bottom when I do when I do a transition to a different weave. And it's much the same as before. So this is much darker than I would normally do the lines. After that, you have the grid on your bowl, so now it's just a matter of drawing the pattern. Same as on the paper. Now you can see why nobody would call me an artist. Draw the pattern all the way around, and then you're ready to start burning.